The wind howled through the craggy passes as dusk settled upon the Himalayan foothills. Clumps of snow fell in thick, swaying curtains, blanketing the world in white. Along a narrow trail carved into the side of a towering peak, a young man named Dawa labored against the fierce gusts. His breath crystallized in the air. His heart thumped a steady rhythm of alarm inside his chest. He was alone. His traveling companions scattered during the sudden blizzard, and darkness threatened to envelop him fully. With every step, he struggled to keep his footing on the slick, ice-laden stone. Memories of home flickered through his mind. He recalled his mother's tearful smile when she had handed him a protective amulet carved from bone, telling him it would guide him through perils. Never had the object felt heavier around his neck. The swirling snow formed ghostly shapes out of the corners of his vision, illusions conjured by his exhausted mind. Occasionally, he thought he saw the outline of a great feline shape amid the rapidly dancing shadows. He'd been warned that Himalayan storms could erupt without notice, each flurry alive with its own unpredictable power. Yet Dawa, a novice scholar determined to study the region's mystical traditions, had underestimated the mountain's capacity for wrath. The local villagers had spoken of a looming storm. That day, the sky had seemed ominously grey, but he had pushed forward regardless, convinced of his own stamina. Now, each minute felt more precarious than the last, and the idea of rest threatened to seduce him. Perhaps he might just sit, let the snow form a quiet burial mound over him, and end the fearful strife. But his mother's parting words echoed in his mind, urging perseverance. He tightened his grip on his walking staff and forced himself to keep moving. The darkness was nearly absolute when he happened upon a slight glow in the distance. A golden pair of eyes flickered amid the swirling flakes. At first, Dawa dismissed it as a trick of exhaustion. Then, the eyes blinked. A dim silhouette emerged. Lithe form, long tail, powerful muscles clearly evident even beneath a thick shroud of white fur. He looked directly at him. The legend of the mystical snow leopard whispered around campfires, whipped through his memory. Dawa's heart pounded, and for a moment he questioned whether to flee. But he had no strength to run, and something about the creature's eyes filled him with an unaccountable sense of calm. Almost imperceptibly, the leopard beckoned to him, stepping a pace forward and then pausing, glancing over its shoulder as if urging him on. Summoning the last vestiges of fortitude, Dawa trailed after the animal. It moved gracefully through the snow, unnaturally sure-footed on ice-slick stone. At times, the swirling white threatened to obscure its form, but moments before the cat vanished fully, it would pause, tail flicking, head turned, making certain he still followed. The wind bit at Dawa's exposed cheeks, and each breath became an ordeal, yet the promise of shelter drew him onward. In the recesses of his wearied mind, a tale surfaced, told to him by a wizened monk in a village at the base of the mountain. Some say the snow leopard is a guardian spirit, appearing to those lost in the darkest storms. If you follow it with pure intent, it may lead you to places where mortal eyes seldom tread, sacred abodes untouched by time. Dawa had dismissed it as myth. An interesting bit of folk, but there he was, stumbling after the lithe creature, uncertain whether he was dreaming or if the spirit world had indeed opened its gates for him. Step by precarious step, they ascended, the path neighboring perilous cliffs. Several times, Dawa's foot slid on loose rock, and he nearly tumbled. Yet the cat was always just ahead, guiding him around one bend, then another, leading him higher. The storm showed no mercy, though the wind's roar now seemed more distant. The swirling sheets of snow parted occasionally, like the flutter of a great white curtain, giving him glimpses of the starlit sky overhead. Occasionally, he imagined an otherworldly hush, as if sound might vanish entirely, replaced by an enormous emptiness in which only the leopard's soft footfalls existed. He lost all sense of time in that night's journey. His limbs felt numb, and he trudged forward as if in a trance. Then, at last, the snow leopard paused at the mouth of a cavern set into the mountainside. The cat gazed upon Dawa with luminous eyes before slipping silently inside, its shape swallowed by the cave's darkness. The young man hesitated, half terrified at venturing underground. But the wind howled fiercer behind him, and the air smelled of lightning. Gathering his nerve, he entered. Inside, the darkness pressed against him. He clutched at the cold walls, numb fingers searching for stability. He considered using the small flint he carried to kindle a flame, but a soft glow emerged deeper within, flickering from behind a hidden turn. He staggered toward that light. The tunnel widened, revealing a small chamber. Stalactites shimmered in the faint illumination, and the snow leopard stood atop a ledge of stone. In the center of the cave glowed a softly burning brazier, a small basin of metal hammered into a lotus design. Its pale flames danced without apparent source of fuel, casting amber reflections on the smooth stone floor. Dawa crouched by the brazier, letting its gentle heat seep into his body. The cave provided blessed shelter from the howling storm outside. Exhausted, he went from trembling to hazily relaxed. Sleep overcame him with no fight left in his bones, and he slumped next to the flickering warmth of the fire. When he woke, he felt uncertain how much time had passed. The brazier's flames still glowed, as steady as if no time had elapsed at all. He recalled stories of perpetual fires encountered in temple shrines, never to be extinguished, as a symbol of eternal life. A small, simple offering of incense lay smoldering at the edge of the basin. The heavy scent tickled his nostrils. He rubbed his eyes and realized with a start that the snow leopard was gone. Panic fired through him. Perhaps he had lost his guide. Perhaps he was stranded in that cave with no knowledge of how to progress. Just as the thought took hold, he glimpsed paw prints disappearing around another bend on the far side of the chamber. Rising stiffly, he steeled his courage and followed the trail. The prints were imprinted in a fine dust that coated the cave floor, as if someone had sprinkled silver ash. The path led out of the cave and into a high, hidden valley. Morning had come. Instead of storm clouds, bright sunshine gilded the peaks, turning the snow to a mirror that dazzled his eyes. In the distance, he saw the snow leopard cresting a ridge, illuminated by the rising sun. Dawa rushed forward, heart hammering anew. The valley spread out like a secret divinity cradled by the highest summits. Tall pines coated in fresh snow flanked a frozen riverbed. Small clusters of wildflowers, surprisingly resilient to the cold, burst through the snow in vibrant pinks and yellows in sheltered pockets. Overhead, the sky glowed an impossible shade of blue, as if the storm had cleansed all impurities, leaving only the pure color of day. Dawa's breath caught in awe. He'd never felt closer to the sky than in that moment. The leopard guided him across the valley, always keeping just within sight. At the far end rose a sheer rock face, scoured by centuries of wind. Water trickled from a hidden spring, forming a veil of ice that shimmered like crystal. Dawa wondered how any path could ascend the steep cliff, yet once again the cat led him unerringly, bounding up small ledges and traversing narrow ledges of rock, while Dawa scrambled after him, always mere inches from a deadly fall. The climb was treacherous, but the sun offered the promise of warmth. The further they ascended, the more an uncanny sense of peace filled Dawa's soul. The wind that had once seemed so menacing now sighed softly among the crags. He descended a final ledge, pulled himself onto a broad plateau and gasped in wonder. Sprawled on the plateau stood an ethereal monastery, carved from ivory-colored stone that almost blended seamlessly with its surroundings. Long, intricately carved pillars ringed the courtyard. A line of prayer wheels, each etched with ancient script, bordered the outer wall. Streams of golden prayer flags flapped gently in the breeze, colors so vibrant that they appeared almost luminous against the surrounding whiteness. It was as though an entire hidden realm existed high among the peaks, untouched by mortal hands. Dawa felt tears welling in his eyes, for in that moment The place seemed to resonate with a divine harmony he had only read about in sacred texts. At the entrance, a robed figure stood, motionless. Dawa froze, uncertain whether to approach. The figure let out a gentle smile and beckoned him closer, as though his arrival had long been expected. Only then did Dawa notice that the snow leopard was nowhere to be seen, as if it had vanished the moment its task had been completed. He recalled the legends describing the leopard as a guardian, guiding worthy souls to realms unknown to the ordinary traveler. The robed figure introduced himself as Lama Nima, an elder caretaker of the monastery. His face was lined with age, yet his eyes sparkled with youthful curiosity. Without a word of explanation, he ushered Dawa inside. The monastery corridors smelled of incense and saffron. Wooden beams, intricately carved with depictions of celestial beings, supported high ceilings that curved into domes painted with murals, stories of guardians and souls seeking enlightenment. Voice hushed, Dawa asked where he was, but Lama Nima only responded cryptically. A sanctuary for those who truly seek it. Over the following days, Dawa recuperated in the monastery, tended to by monks whose footsteps seemed to float across the polished floors. The storm outside might as well have been a distant memory, yet in his heart he knew that down below the mountains, winter raged on. The novices in the monastery brought him cups of steaming butter tea and modest bowls of rice, always observing him with quiet respect. Sometimes they engaged him in gentle conversation, asking about life beyond the peaks, or reciting philosophical verses. At every turn, he sensed the aura of the place, calm, benevolent, as though time itself had softened within those walls. When Dawa recounted how he had come to be there, the harrowing storm following the snow leopard Lama Nima nodded knowingly. "He comes to those who need him, that is all," the elder monk said. "Here, on these heights, illusions fade and truth shines. You were guided for a reason." Driven by curiosity, Dawa asked what reason might have brought him. Lama Nima responded with a serene smile. "That is for you to discover. Each person sees the path differently once their eyes have truly opened." His curiosity blossomed, and Dawa explored every corridor and courtyard within the monastery. Each chamber held its own wonders. In one, an eternal flame burned, encircled by an unbroken line of carved lotus petals. In another, an ancient scroll, inscribed in gold leaf, recounted tales of wise teachers who had ascended to the spirit realm, leaving only their words behind. At times, he would catch a fleeting glimpse of the snow leopard weaving through the corridors, like a ghost drifting between worlds. Always silent, always just on the edge of sight. One evening, as dusk settled, Dawa ventured into the monastery's central courtyard to find a row of prayer wheels. Their surfaces gleamed with inscriptions of mantras in a script so old it felt more sacred than any he had studied before. Gentle chanting echoed from the far corners of the yard. He placed a hand on the nearest wheel and turned it, letting the words spin out into the twilight. The effect was profound. A soft harmony seemed to resonate through the stones, as if the entire building sighed in sympathy. He repeated the motion, turning another wheel, focusing his mind on an unspoken prayer of gratitude. Yet amid the serenity, an unease grew within him. Something about the monastery's existence, the secret location, the intangible tranquility made him wonder if he was dreaming. Each day, the sky maintained its flawless shade of blue, the snow glittered under a gentle sun, and the wind carried only faint murmurs. It was as if time had lost meaning in that sacred place. Weeks might have passed, or perhaps only a few days. He felt no urgency to leave, nor did anyone suggest he remain. Each step simply felt right, guided by an invisible presence. Late one night, Dawa drifted into a restless sleep. He dreamed of the leopard standing in a corridor, its eyes reflecting moonlight. The cat turned, moving deeper into shadows, and he followed. The corridor led outside, to the high plateau where storms gathered overhead. Black clouds churned, illuminated by forks of lightning. The wind rose in a wailing lament. Dawa's heart pounded as he saw shapes swirling amid the storm. Lost travelers calling out in anguish, their voices drowned by the roaring gale. The snow leopard sprinted into the tempest. As it did, a radiant glow enveloped its body, lighting the path through the swirling darkness. The dream ended with a clap of thunder, snapping him awake. Heart rattling in his chest, he sat up. Moonlight filtered through the small window in his chamber. The dream's urgency remained with him. Some force compelled him to don his warm clothes, take his staff, and leave his room. The corridors lay deserted, as though all the monks were in deep meditation. He passed by the prayer wheels, which seemed to spin on their own with no visible hand turning them, producing a cascading murmur of mantras. At the main gates, he paused and exhaled bitterly cold air. Beyond the threshold, the same secluded valley stretched silently in the moonlight. Yet a distant rumble of thunder confirmed that a storm brewed on the horizon. As he stood there, debating whether to leave, Lama Nui Nema's voice emerged behind him. "So you go to find your path?" the elder asked, appearing with that incorruptible calm etched on his face. Dawa swallowed, uncertain how to respond. Part of him longed to stay, to bask in the monastery's unchanging peace. Another part recognized that the dream's message was no idle fancy in the swirling storm. There were others, lost like he had been, and perhaps they also needed a guiding light. "Go," Lama Nyima said gently, as if reading Dawa's thoughts. "Our home here exists not only for our sake, but for those who need it. The leopard already showed you the way. Now you may walk it for yourself." Dawa nodded, bowed low, and stepped out into the frozen night. He descended the narrow cliff path by the illumination of the moon and the silent guidance of memory. A memory of following paw prints in the snow. In the hush of winter darkness, the realization struck him. The monastery did not confine its blessings to a single location. Rather, it embodied a principle of compassion. A living spirit meant to be taken wherever it was needed. Back down in the valleys, the storm had indeed returned, swirling with renewed fury. Dawa's face was instantly whipped by ice crystals. He pressed forward anyway, determined. He imagined the snow leopard, its graceful form unwavering against the furious wind, and drew courage from that thought. Though the night was pitch black, he discovered that his senses felt heightened, chiseling out a faint trail with uncanny sureness. The protective amulet at his neck seemed to radiate faint warmth, as though supporting him in each step. At the far edge of the valley, thick clouds threatened to bury the lower villages beneath a relentless deluge of snow. Lightning flickered, revealing glimpses of unsuspecting travelers. A small caravan of merchants, stuck in drifts near a bend in the road, terrified and desperate. Their shouts were drowned by thunder, their bodies hunched against the wind. Without hesitation, Dawa uncoiled a rope from his pack and started toward them. They recoiled as he approached, fear in their eyes. But with slow, clear words, he reassured them, leading the path. Despite the frigid blasts, he guided them to a sheltered cave along the mountainside, reminiscent of the one he himself had taken refuge in. They stumbled in, fear giving way to relief, and Dawa built a small fire from the tinder he had stored, warming their frozen limbs. As the flames licked upwards, he recounted the tale of the snow leopard and the hidden monastery, weaving hope into each syllable. The merchants, exhausted but enthralled, clung to his every word. When they expressed disbelief at first, he only smiled. "I too doubted," he said softly, "until I followed those golden eyes through a deadly storm." Perhaps none of them could fully grasp the monastery's reality, that realm perched high in the secret recesses of the Himalayas, but at the very least his story gave them something to hold on to, an ember of faith. The group spent the night huddled around the dancing flames. By morning, the storm had gentled. they decided to move on before it could renew its fury. Dawa led them safely to a known trading route, the road winding between mountain passes. Mere hours later, they sighted the roofs of a village, nestled in a valley protected by sturdy pines. For some, the journey ended there. For Dawa, it continued. News of the storm's severity had travelled swiftly among the mountains. Dawa learned of yet more stranded travellers, a pair of elderly pilgrims searching for a long-lost shrine, an injured yak herder separated from his flock, a group of children whose parents had been delayed by weather. With each telling, Dawa felt the call to guide, to follow in the snow leopard's footprints as best he could. And so he garnered provisions, said a prayer, and set out into each new barrage of wind. Time and again he found frightened souls, coaxing them toward shelter or guiding them to the next village or hidden nook among the crags. Some stared in wonder as he appeared just when hope had dimmed, like a spirit summoned from ancient lore. In the hush of early morning, he would sometimes glimpse the snow leopard on a distant ridge. Their eyes would meet, a silent bond passing between them that needed no words. Over time, he came to realize that the great cat did not belong to the mortal world alone. It was indeed the living presence of compassion and guardianship, stepping into physical form whenever hearts were on the verge of surrender. Its footprints were not to be captured or measured, but to be witnessed in moments of dire need or spiritual awakening. Eventually, the unrelenting snows began to slow, yielding to the faint hints of spring. Villages emerged from drifts of white. Travelers gathered around stories of survival, and the once deadly trails broke under more welcoming sunlight. Dawa, exhausted yet elated, found himself at the threshold of another small mountain community, greeted as a savior by those who had heard rumors of his deeds. He bore no illusions of being a hero. He was but a messenger, someone who had felt the grace of a guiding spirit and resolved to share it. In that village, perched precariously on the mountainside, Dawa received an invitation into a local temple. There, a modest alcove housed a tapestry depicting a snow leopard among the storm clouds, guiding monks to a hidden sanctuary. The tapestry was said to be hundreds of years old, a local treasure. Dawa stood before it with trembling reverence, seeing in the illustrated features the same watchful eyes and regal posture. When a local elder placed a gentle hand on his shoulder, he recognized a universal truth, that each of us, in our own way, can become a guiding light once we have seen the path clearly. Still, a question remained within him. Did the ethereal monastery exist tangibly, or had it been a vision offered only in his darkest hour? That night, as he settled wearily into the sleeping mat provided in the temple, he found clarity in the silent hush of the mountains. Whether real or ephemeral, the monastery's heart lay not in stone walls, but in the willingness to extend hope. The snow leopard was more than a miraculous guide. It was the embodiment of compassion that seemed to prowl silently through the painful storms of human life. Seasons passed, and Dawa continued his studies, collecting folk tales from the many corners of the Himalayan region. He found mention of the hidden monastery in more than one account, always couched in riddles and layered with mystic wonder. A place not found except by the lost. A flame that never dims, lighting the path of hearts that have turned truly inward. Sometimes, just reading those words brought him back to the silent corridors, the prayer wheels singing out unspoken truths, the radiant flags dancing in the breeze. When he at last returned to his childhood home, his mother welcomed him with joyful tears. He knelt before her, pressed the bone amulet into her hands, and recounted how it had proven to be more than just a charm. It had anchored him to her love in his darkest moments. She grasped his hands, and for a while neither spoke. They needed no words to share the gratitude pulsing in their hearts. To this day, travelers in the Himalayan highlands still speak of a wondrous snow leopard that appears in the midst of the fiercest storms. Some claim to have followed it into hidden caves or over dangerous passes. A few even tell of stumbling upon an otherworldly monastery, only to emerge changed, carrying in their hearts a light that no blizzard can quell. Skeptics dismiss such tales as fever dreams or illusion. Others argue the cat is merely an elusive creature of flesh and blood, possessed of great cunning, born of evolution. Yet those whose eyes have met the leopard's glowing gaze know that something far greater resides in those silent mountains. A guiding spirit, ever watchful, stepping through the veil between worlds to lead lost souls toward shelter, solace, and ultimately, the Dawa's own journeys are woven into that tapestry, inseparable from the stories of others who have found the monastery, if only in a moment of profound despair or clarity. And in the hush of the solemn nights, when winter's breath roars outside some lonely village, he thinks back to the luminous eyes that first beckoned him from the brink. He can still feel the invisible tether of that encounter guiding him through each choice, each new horizon. He has come to understand that the path revealed by the snow leopard extends beyond mere footsteps in the snow. It is a path leading inward, toward the unmovable flame at the center of one's being. A flame that, once recognized, will forever be a guiding light in even the fiercest storm.